Welcome to the Log Time Podcast. Us three anime boys are back with a one-off about one of my favorite shows, Love Lab, a fun and surprisingly deep 4-coma adaptation about a group of girls finding friendship together and wondering that prolific question, how to boy? So let's enter the laboratory together, shall we? To describe this show, I think the best thing that I could say is that Love Lab is your last 5 brain cells trying to figure out how to love someone.
I think that's generous. I think it's more like about 2.5 brain cells divided between like 5 sentient bodies.
Yeah, alright, yeah.
In various proportions, at least.
Yeah. I did not know that Love Lab was going to be what Love Lab was.
Oh, yeah?
It's pretty unexpected, actually. If you think of a certain... I don't really remember if this is a 4-coma or not, but...
It is.
It is? Okay. Well, you know the traditional, like, 4-coma format. It definitely doesn't follow that. It also doesn't... may go a little bit more into the dramatic sector at times. Than you would expect.
Yeah, especially the ending, which, I enjoy that ending.
I do too. Like, so the fact of the matter is, I mean, like, this is a Doga Kobo show. It's as you might have said, Matt, it's the best Doga Kobo that Doga Kobo did.
Yeah, arguably. You could argue maybe Nizaki-kun as another, but
yeah,
it's definitely one of the top 3, at least. So
yeah. So what I was going to say is, like, my context for Doga Kobo is, like, engaged to the unidentified, Nozaki-kun, things like that don't really have much in the way of...
Stakes?
Stakes, a lot of specific, like, unfolding story and plot and drama other than, like, set up for big old goofs.
Yeah.
Look at shows like New Game, for instance. Like, that show is... You'd think it would have a lot more stakes than it would, but it doesn't.
Mm-hmm. So I was pretty fucking blindsided by this because my only exposure to Love Lab has been dumbass gifs of Maki, like
that I keep sending you.
Yeah, basically.
He's got a lot of them.
He does. You do. And so for me, I was like, I love this. It's gonna be a very dumb, like, episodic goof fest about some poor sweet girls that are just trying to find out what love is.
Oh boy, were you wrong.
Boy, wasn't I.
You were partially correct. I think on a math test you would get partial credit for that one.
Okay, yeah. So I mean, like, Love Lab is largely about this dumbass student council that's like, we don't know nothing about boys. Let's find out about boys. How girls? How do we boys?
Yeah, it's also so nice
Fellas.
that since there aren't a lot of boys involved in the story, it seems like a much safer environment for them to just be like, how do you boy? I don't know how boy.
Yep. What I didn't expect was for it to end up being a show about what happens when you have a seemingly innocent lie and it continues to snowball out of control, and you don't do anything to handle it, but also about, like, being blackmailed by a student organization or other things that have some kind of actual, like, social stakes to it.
Having the entirety of, like, your personal attempts at finding love being spread and photocopied out to the larger members of the student body.
Yeah, man, I was not expecting to feel things and have, like, a lump in my throat and, like, a battle feeling in my tummy, like, oh my god, this is happening to these poor innocent souls. Episode, like, 3.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Let me tell you, like, this show doesn't get any easier to swallow after the 3 times that I've now seen it.
I still love it so much, though, and I still laugh so hard for the vast majority of the show.
I mean, yeah, there's a lot of parts that are very funny. I'll agree with that. I just feel like that every time I watch this, I don't know, I feel like the drama just gets stronger. Like, I really feel like they've like you were saying about the like the whole like building from a lie thing.
Yeah.
Like that whole part just hits harder like every single time.
And that makes sense because, like, you know, I wouldn't expect this, you know, having it been my first time. I didn't expect it. But, you know, once you go into it, you have that sense of foreknowledge. And it's like, fuck me, I know what's coming.
Yeah, how deep the rabbit hole goes on that one.
Yeah, just like, Rico, you should not have done that. You should not have done that. That's a problem. Oh my god, please stop. You gotta just tell her.
Well, it's one of those things. I'm not gonna say I have any personal experience with this because I don't really, but I mean, it's basically like I can see where that would like get out of control really fast. Like,
oh yeah,
it doesn't take much. You can develop not even from a lie necessarily, just from maybe even like a misunderstanding, like that you just never clarify.
Yeah,
and so it's so funny because I know in this podcast before we've complained about misunderstandings and how that's, you know, kind of like, you know, something that anime can get like right or wrong depending on, you know, what it does with it.
But typically we don't usually like it because they tend to do it wrong, kind of thing. Yeah,
sort of that. But at the same time, this show decides to go like the direct route. They go with the, you know, the lying route, and in some ways it's similar to a misunderstanding plot line, but it's also different in that, like, you have to actually you have to confront the misunderstanding, like lie in this case. You have to confront it directly, and a lot of shows I feel like don't do that. They don't confront the lie like directly or as sincerely maybe as this show does.
Well, and it's also,
yeah, it's more like it all. Sorry, go on.
Oh, I was gonna say it's also kind of like the main aspect of this show throughout it is that, like, not only do we have this initial lie, but then you have these characters constantly solving problems by lying. And so it's like, it's this like weird aspect of just like, you know, sometimes they lie and it's okay, but then most of the time it just blows back on their face and they have to realize, oh shit, like, you know, this is getting out of hand.
Well, I mean, I guess thinking about that.
I mean,
well, I mean,
can you elaborate a little bit what you mean?
Well, for instance, so like the linchpin is that we have this character who lies at the start of all of this, and like that's what we have to go off of. But Rico is actually just like, her whole trait is she's a liar, because like she manages to get them into the recording room, the broadcasting room, and like doing all these crazy shit by making up a bunch of lies for people to follow through. And then she does that a couple of other times where you have these schemes where you see that she's really good at lying, and she constantly does it. It's just she's using it for a purpose to help her friends, but then there's still this overarching lie that is negatively impacting her friends, and then she's not able to clear up. Like,
oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah,
that's a really interesting way to approach that, and I didn't actually view it that way.
Well, it's because this isn't my first time viewing it. I was thinking back on it, I'm like, yeah, Riko's a liar. That's what her trait is. It's not that there was one lie and that becomes the plot point. Rather than that, it's the actual trait of the character. Like, she's just almost compulsively doing this.
Yeah, and sometimes it works out, and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes, you know, it's harmless. Sometimes it's not. Like, it can, and I could understand. I can understand Rico's perspective. Like, sometimes you try to do the right thing, and then, like, it just either spirals out of control, or it, you know, becomes a lot larger, or, you know, you feel like you were doing it for the right reason, and then it backfires. Like. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's kind of like the core aspect of the show, or at least a core aspect of it, is just the fact that, like, I don't know, at least for me, I felt pretty compelled with Rico's story of just like dealing with, you know, what is lying mean? Like, is that like even lying? Is that like, you know?
And is it okay to lie and that kind of thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, it becomes the center point of the show, I think. More so than just dissecting what is boy, which they also try to get into.
But it's so interesting, too, because, I mean, the initial, like, quote-unquote misunderstanding of, Rico being this master of love is just, it comes from this point where it's like, this is the first time I have really met this perfect student council president, and she's a fucking weirdo, and she almost like ran over me with toast in her mouth for fucking research. And she suddenly asks me, do you boy? And I'm like, yeah, boy, lots boy, I'm popular.
Mostly just to try and calm her down in the moment, too. She wasn't trying to be, like, incredibly, like, evil to her. It was just like, oh, she's upset and she's hurting. I'll just tell you this one thing. And hopefully it makes you feel better. Yeah.
I think the show even says that at one point. That
the biggest thing that she does is that she is always, like, trying to be considerate to others.
Yeah.
So I get that.
Yeah, and the fascinating thing is, like, she does this thinking she's probably not really gonna see Maki again. Like, right. This is a weird fucking one-off kind of thing. It's like, okay, whatever, fine. If it's gonna calm you down, then sure, here we go. And then,
yeah, because I mean,
without
it's
even really thinking about it, it's something that spirals and devolves into something much larger. When in reality, it's not that big of a stretch of a thing to say. Like, it's completely inconsequential, but when it is left unchecked like that, and it starts as like a linchpin of that relationship,
right,
then it does build into something a lot bigger and a lot more consequential. Yep. Which is fascinating. Like, a molehill becomes a mountain in a way.
And it's interesting too, because like between these two characters, this was literally the first time they ever talked to each other, ever. And so, like, there's no reason for her to think, like, oh, this will come back to haunt me. She has no reason to think that she'll ever interact with this person again. Like, it was just a weird one-off situation that suddenly spiraled.
Yeah, and I mean, that can happen, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Junji Ito would be proud.
I don't know what that has to do with this, but okay.
It's an Uzumaki joke.
Oh, okay. That was the joke. It was just the spiral. Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
But I think along the way it manages to have these somewhat like heartfelt and dramatic plot points while still kind of keeping this central core tone that the show is established from the get-go.
Which honestly I find is kind of amazing.
Astonishing.
Yeah, especially because like the other half of the show outside of the drama that we've discussed is literal Looney Tunes slapstick humor. Like
it's fucking gut busting. Some of the dumbest shit they do in this goddamn show. Like I got a kick out of when one of the one of the newspaper duo was like stuck up on a wall and was trying to convince Sayori, our club treasurer. She was like, I'll make you cry, Uncle, one day. And Sayori, she's like, okay, Uncle. Here, I'll throw some for you on the house. And she just keeps saying like, Uncle, 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 Uncle.
And she's like, she said it.
And then the previous club president, Inamoto. Yeah, she starts coming in. She's also like, hey, yeah, whatever. Uncle, Uncle, Uncle. And she's like, oh my God, they're harmonizing. And it fucking killed me. There's so much stuff in this show that it is so like beautifully animated, and the movements are so fluid that some of the visual humor is unlike anything else I've ever seen.
It's so good.
It's honestly unlike a lot of future Dokukobo shows, which is rather interesting.
I know.
I want to know if the Sakuga part of me is being sparked of like, what are the differences in the animators that they had then and now? But yeah.
Yeah. Because
I think it's also interesting because a lot of the like really, really smooth animation is not from like your typical thing where it's like, oh, look at this amazing, like, just this person showing off about doing, like, a hand, and they're doing, like, a sweet trick with a pen or something like that. It's them, like, super deforming, but then the animation for that super deformed state is just so freaking smooth. And, like, the way that it squashes and stretches is beautiful.
More frames.
Yeah, but also even just in, like, regular conversation, there is so much fluidity to the movement of these characters that I think of a lot of shows in the past few years I've seen that have not been as smooth as this goddamn show have been,
which came out in 2013.
Yeah, it's incredible to me how just straight up gorgeous this show is, and how much, like, it's not just a wow, the show's pretty. It's like a wow, holy cow, the actual, like, visual cojones of this goddamn show brings such another depth of meaning and of punch to, like, the characters and the dialogue and the jokes and everything else to it.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, anime is a visual format, no shit. And, the look of the thing is very important. But, like, so much for Love Lab is predicated on the fact that 9 times out of 10, this show is so, like, skillful in how it moves and how it strings its animation together. And I can't think of the last time I nerded out this hard over a show and how it looked. Like,
yeah, and I also think that that's really cool to see in a comedy, because a lot of times it's not visual gags that a lot of anime rely on. It's dialogue gags. It's the humor from the dialogue or whatever that situation is, instead of that the actual visuals are just so fucking funny that you want to laugh at them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so, like, I think that's definitely a strength of Love Lab.
It's definitely less common.
Yeah.
For sure.
So I don't know, man. I am kind of astonished that I've gone this long without seeing Love Lab.
Yeah, we even tried to get you to watch it whenever I was in my old apartment and we were all together in the same city.
Oh, I know it, man. Those were different days.
Oh, yeah.
You said that with like 1,000-yard stare, as if you're hearing helis in the background, just like.
I kind of felt like dead-eyed stare, kind of like coming from that.
Yeah, well, that's a different story for not a podcast, but
I'm sure.
No, but yeah, I really love Love Lab.
It's fucking great. It's beautiful. It has such. If I say fluidity one more time, I'm gonna fucking like
turn into a fluid.
I guess, yeah, but like I'll stop the world and melt with me. I just. It's so good, and the characters have such great chemistry together too.
Their dynamics are very good, and it's not always that like one person will always play the foil to somebody's comic or the comic to somebody's foil. It's constantly switching it up too, because these are characters. They're not just going to be like one-sided in that way, and I think that's really cool.
They're very complex in that sense because, again, like another Dogakobo show, Gekkan Shoujo Nozaki-kun is literally one of my favorite anime ever. And, while I would say that, the characters are, like, multi-layered, they're still kind of one-trick ponies in a lot of ways. They just kind of find a lot of ways to do that one trick.
Right, it's all the same joke,
but it's just in different permutations.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, which makes it multi-layered, but yeah, it's definitely like it's a different level of complexity. Like,
yeah, and that's the thing.
I feel like with a show like this, and maybe that is because of like the dramatic aspect, but I wouldn't really say that. I don't know.
Well, but there's also just a lot of like. Because sometimes they'll have characters that like they'll say something and then immediately just like bam, another character's on it, and it doesn't even have to be the same character all the time. It's like they're just so good at playing off of each other because they know each other, and you can like really feel that.
Yeah, very much so. And like you still get that in other 4-koma comedy adaptations or just comedy shows as well. But I mean, like, these characters really grow over the span of 13 episodes. Because I mean, like, episode 1 of Nozaki-kun, Nozaki is the same character in episode 1 as he is at the end of the season.
Right.
Like, there's not really any development there.
Right.
It's just we have followed them for a bit and they've done some goof ass shit and it's been fun. But like Riko and Maki and Sayori and Suzune and Ino all have some degree of growth and development over the span of these episodes. Mm-hmm. And whether it is like, you know, coming to realize and really trust and own up to your mistakes, or if it's just kind of realizing, I actually value these friendships and I don't have to be alone and by myself, and it's nice to have friends to call my own. Like, it's a lot of really heartfelt shit that, again, you wouldn't really expect out of, again, a 4-coma adaptation of some goof-ass comedy comic.
Yeah, and I would like to point out that, like, for a show that's called Love Lab and is about a bunch of girls thinking what is boy, none of their relationship statuses change from episode 1 to the last episode. None of them. But yet they've grown so freaking much the entire time, and it's just really more about their own friendship. Mm-hmm. That's cool. That's very cool.
It is.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting for a show that's actually called Love Lab. There's
yeah, you would think
not much progression in that way.
You know, romantic hijinks and all this other stuff. Nope, that's not what's important. What's important is these characters and their friendship.
Mm-hmm. Because we get like a few red herrings here and there where it seems like we might have a little bit of a romantic plot developing here, and it's like nah, that's a side thing.
Yeah,
that's a little tease, and then we're done. So I mean, you know, it works and it all serves a purpose. I don't feel like there's anything in the show that is really like wasted in terms of, you know, plot points that go to develop anywhere.
No,
I don't know.
It's actually really good at doing the whole Chekhov's gun thing. Because, like, I remember I even noticed that because, Riko was late for school, and as she's headed out the door, her mother is talking to her about their next-door neighbor. And then they don't do anything with it, but then at the very end of the episode, all of a sudden you find out that, oh, it is her next-door neighbor. Oh, and that's the guy that apparently had confessed to her at one point and she turned him down. Mm-hmm. And it's like there was multiple times in which like they set something up like that, and then it was even though it seemed like just kind of a one-off thing for the scene as like a bit of humor, all of a sudden it just pays off at some point later. Mm-hmm. Which I thought was really nice. Will say did not need the blackface scene. Other than that.
Oh yeah, that was
that was a little
it was a little out of left field.
Yeah, the Soul Sister scene.
Yeah.
Like, hello, can y'all
definitely felt out of it? Almost felt out of place, and well, it did feel out of place, but yeah.
I just like
it's just weird.
Yeah, it's one of those where you're like, well, that I was not expecting to see in my anime today.
Yeah. That aside, I don't think there were any major goofs that like fell as flat on their face.
No, that was basically it, and it's because
there were a bunch of girls that fell flat on their face.
But
well, no, I mean literally.
No, like there was that whole
whole tripping scene.
Yeah, the whole tripping chase scene.
Yeah,
or all the students are like watching them go down the hall, and they're like, "Are they gonna make it? No, okay."
So fucking good.
Oh, it's very good.
I definitely get that because I'm a klutz. So
mm-hmm. I've done my best to declutsify myself over the years.
I haven't.
I have tried to. That doesn't mean I've succeeded.
Well, yeah, I guess that's true.
I'm not so much a physical klutz as I just create awkward situations around myself. No, yeah, I loved pretty much all the jokes in this one. Like they were all just like really solid. I like it so much.
It has a great sense of comedic timing.
Yes, it does.
And the way that it designs its characters and their personal quirks and such, and the way that they kind of feed off of each other, as you said earlier, Kyle. Like it makes for a beautiful like gut buster of a cocktail.
Gosh, and the photographer and the writer for the Newspaper Society, like, they're just so quick. I love it so much. They're so snappy that I just, like, I don't even have time to laugh because I'm just, like, still trying to laugh about what they said, like, 3 lines ago.
Yeah, Nana and Momoka are absolute assholes, and they're great.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Fucking dream team.
Definitely truth.
Get you somebody who schemes together like them.
Get you someone who acts nice for maybe a bigger budget and a new room.
Those are the two that are like the stereotypical joke of like your true friend is in the cell next to you saying, "Man, shit went down." Like that's exactly what those two are.
They're textbook ride or die.
Yeah. No, yeah, great show. Everybody should check it out.
Yeah, it's a masterpiece in its own way, for sure.
Very good.
Yeah.
Very unique.
Anything?
Yeah.
You surprisingly, based on, you wouldn't think a clubroom comedy might be unique, but this one is.
Yeah,
for sure.
Here we are. It is a lot more than it initially appears. I think like that's part of why I didn't initially like it.
Yeah, because it doesn't look like it's going to be that way.
It doesn't look like anything.
Yeah, it's part of why I didn't watch it for the longest time. Why it took a podcast to actually get me to do the dang thing, because I'm like, okay, well that's cute. I could kind of just watch like Nichijou or something and get the same effect from this. But I might watch it at some point. But had I known that there was an actual deeper element to it, I would have probably snatched it up earlier. So it's good to at least alert there's more to it than you might think.
I always feel like I go into this show, like every time I watch it, I feel like I'm not going to like it after, upon rewatch, but I end up enjoying it every time I rewatch.
Well, it's funny too, because I always love the story, but outside of the ending, anytime that I think back on the show, I'm more often thinking of just like Maki moving her feet at like 50 miles an hour while standing in place. I think about that or the ending. I don't always think about like, oh yeah, there's a lot of like really good story and development throughout the rest of this.
Yeah, the ending really sticks out in my mind.
That's a great
and some of the comedy quips like you were mentioning, but
yeah.
It's such a great payoff at the end.
It is. It's satisfying.
So incredibly
just that massive emotional
yes.
moment in the living room, and then like everything after that, and you see how like it actually unfolded. You're like, yes, oh, that's so good.
The whole last episode is a ride in of itself.
Yeah, whole last episode is fantastic,
and it works so well, and it ties up so many loose ends. Like I don't get to the end of it thinking, well, shit, X thing didn't get resolved.
No,
like they have got it all done. They sealed all that shit up with duct tape. It's all good to go.
Yeah, it is a
ship it out.
Ship it out. It's good.
Yep.
Yeah. Anything else you want to say?
I'm gonna remember it primarily for that awful image you sent us in the Discord.
Of them trying to look up affectionately at the boy, but then it turns out
puppy dog eyes.
Yeah, they just look fucking possessed.
Yeah, that sucks, and I'm gonna wake up tonight seeing Maki look like she's coming out of the ring or some shit.
I need to see how late Costco is open and see if I can get a cardboard cutout and ship it to you.
Podcast over. Friendship done.
The friendship is over right now.
We'll catch everybody next time.
Bye.
Bye. You can't just say curse things like that. You can't just do that.
Thanks for listening. As always, you can find all our podcast, articles, videos, etc. at thebacklogers.com. Our intro-outro song is The Bear by Shell in the Pit. You can find on Spotify as well as Bandcamp. We'd love to hear from y'all either in the comments on our site or any feedback you want to leave us on whatever podcast platform you like. iTunes, SoundCloud, or your local meetup where there's currently a discussion on the mood and oofs of love. And as always, we're on Twitter at @the_Backloggers. So pull up a sit and log and stop by for a bit. Thanks!